What is up, everybody? Welcome to another unscripted podcast video, and I am here with CrystAAHHL. Some of you may have heard of her.
Hi! Some of you may have heard of me. I'm CrystAAHHL.
And those of you that are here on my channel from CrystAAHHL, welcome. I do kind of similar content, but I do mostly SMT and Persona content. Of course, now that the Castlevania DS collection is out, I'm probably going to start making more Castlevania videos again.
Oh, hey, nice.
And, well, I don't know how many of you count it as Persona or SMT, but I'm here covering Metaphor, so I'm definitely going to cover it when the game comes out. But both of us, we were invited to New York City to play an early demo for Metaphor ReFantazio.
Hell yeah, we were. I would argue that Metaphor is like a culmination of Persona and SMT put together.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I note, especially in the Anime Expo demo, I noticed a lot of, like, elements, you know, from Persona, like the whole, like, the social stats and the, you know, like, bond system and everything, that's all from Persona, but then the actual combat, it has the same press start system from SMT.
Exactly. It's just a baby of the both.
Yeah. But, anyway, so I do want the focus of this video to be mostly on the game, but I think we should talk about the event itself. And, this, like, just for the record, this wasn't a public event, this is like an invite-only event. I did get to meet a couple of other content creators, like, well, CrystAAHHL we actually met at AX, but some other content creators who I've heard of and been following for a while, like Dreamcast Guy, Super Derek RPGs, David Cast RPG, so I podcasted before, you know, all really cool people, had a really great time, and, the venue that they rented out was really cool. Like, what was the name of the venue again?
The Angel Arenzis building.
Yeah, or like Oren San's Foundation or something. It was like, it was kind of like a smaller church-like building, but, they had, like, they decorated it with all these, like, you know, posters and official artwork from the game, and, you know, they had, like, we got free food, and they had, like, Xboxes set up with these really comfy chairs, and we got to play the game for 3 hours, so yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, the event was, the building, it felt like we stepped into a fantasy world. They literally booked the most perfect venue, because you step in there, and I'm like, holy crap, I feel like I'm in a fantasy world, because it felt like it had, like, the characteristics of a church, but at the same time, it felt like a theater space, if that makes sense. Like an interactive theater space, which I think is what the building is used for now, but yeah, holy crap, it was a beautiful venue.
Yeah. And, I just think it's really cool that they're, like, you know, working with, like, press and content creators to just, like, host events like these, because, I mean, well, it's not really something you see too often with, you know, like, publishers of Japanese games. I know, like, Activision does it with Call of Duty, at least they used to. I think EA does it with Battlefield, but, I wouldn't expect Atlus to do this sort of thing, and I just think it's really cool that they did.
Yeah, I actually pulled aside the agency that invited us to go, and some Atlus staff members as well. I pulled them aside and I complimented them because it meant a lot, like, not only to just be invited to this event, but it meant a lot to me that they were doing Western push marketing.
Exactly.
Because they never have done this before. And I was like, I'm really proud of you guys for doing this. Thank you so much for, like, inviting all of these creators to come, because it's something that we've been looking for a long time in terms of Western marketing coming out of Sega. So it's their first time doing this. It's a very big deal for them. And of course, not everything was, like, perfect, but I think for their first time doing something like this, it was a huge success.
Well, and actually, it wasn't their first time. They did something similar when Royal came out.
Oh,
But,
right.
I'm not I mean, I didn't get invited to it, so I'm not exactly sure, like, what went on during that event. But,
it wasn't quite the same scale, to my understanding, though.
Right. I think it was smaller, and I'm pretty sure, it was public. They also did, like, another kind of party when Persona 5 Royal came out with some of the voice actors there. And then when Persona 3 and 4 were released on multiple platforms, they also did a similar thing in Los Angeles.
Yes. But if I recall, those things were more geared toward journalists than they were content creators, if I am remembering correctly. I could be totally wrong.
The one in Los Angeles, that was a public event.
Right. This is... I don't know actually if this was their first private one. They've done similar things, but I think to this extent, this is their first time this type of event.
Right. So, yeah, I mean...
Very proud of them.
I'm sure at least somebody from Atlus is probably listening to this. So, you know, if you are, like, you know, definitely do this in the future. I'm sure they're going to do this for Persona 6.
Yeah, I really, really, really hope so, because the power of content creators is very strong, and they've been neglecting using us to, like, promote their games for far too long.
Yeah. Of course, Persona 6 has to actually, like, get announced and, like, you know, get a release date first. So, I don't know, maybe it'll happen by the time I'm, I don't know, 65.
Yeah, one day.
All right,
One day, never.
Anyway, so the main thing that I wanted to talk about here is just to kind of, I guess, just talk about our experience with the game, our thoughts on it, and I would say if there's anything we wanted to change, but, I mean, it was only a 3-hour demo, and, I mean, the game, it looks like the game is pretty much complete, so I don't even know if there's anything they can change at this point.
They can change small things, but I doubt.
Yeah, because they did bring some of the staff there, and they did say Hashino was, like, he wanted to show up, but he couldn't because he's, like, putting some finishing touches on the game, but they did show us a video of him, so that was cool.
Yeah, we had a little cute video with Hoshino, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that was very, very kind of him. I really wish we could have met him,
yeah.
But it's okay. It's okay.
But,
maybe next time.
So yeah, the demo that they showed us, it was, they basically, like, it wasn't really a demo, they basically just had the full game installed on what I assume is an Xbox dev kit, and, like, they basically just, it was like, here, you have 3 hours, get as far as you can, get as much footage as you want, and then talk about the game, but they also did give us guidelines. There are a lot of things I want to say, but can't, because, you know, I don't want to break embargo, obviously. But, like, overall, I had a great time with the demo. I think the gameplay is a lot of fun. The story, can't go into too much detail, but I think the story was very interesting. I like the characters, and one of the biggest complaints I have about, like, you know, I guess, like, mostly the modern Persona games, I'm bringing up that Persona comparison again, but one of my biggest complaints with those games is just how long the tutorials last, and I was, like, kind of still, I guess, on the tutorial by the end, but it didn't really, like, it still felt like the game was, like, I didn't feel like I was being handcuffed by the game or anything like that.
Yeah, that is actually one thing I brought up to the devs after our session. I complimented them on the tutorial, the opening of the game, because it didn't feel too tutorial-y, because it had such a strong impact to the story. Like, it felt very natural, and also the circumstances felt very dire, not to get into, like, story details, but I'm so used to, like, playing a JRPG, and your first mission is, like, to go help this town that's getting raided by bandits. I feel like that's such a common one, right?
Right.
But no, this tutorial, it felt like I just jumped right into the game with barely any tutorial, honestly. Like, it's there, the first dungeon, of course, but it felt very natural, not forced, and I appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you're kind of, they don't really waste your time with a whole bunch of exposition. You do learn a lot, like, very early in the game, but the game doesn't, like, it doesn't pull you aside and say, oh, there's this and this and this and this and that.
Yeah.
I mean, it opens up, like, it opens up with a cutscene, and then, like, you're just, like, immediately thrown into this desert, and when that happened, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start killing some enemies, but then one of them, like, attacked me, and it took away, like, half my health, and then I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna ignore them.
Yeah, the opening area of the game, your first enemies, you're like, oh, my ass is getting whooped, this is great.
Yeah.
Really like a trial
did you
by
die?
fire. I did not. I was living on 1 HP, though.
Oh, okay.
I
There must have been a fail safe because like it took like 2/3 of my HP and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go to the town.
I tried my best to fight. I wanted to pretend like I was really powerful. So I was like, yeah, I'm only level 1. These enemies are level 8, it says. I could take them. I was so confident. But I got humbled and then I ran away.
Yeah.
You cannot, in fact, beat them. Or maybe you can. I'm sure somebody will in the future.
But, I guess, like, the first thing that I found interesting about Metaphor was the setting. Because, like, you know, as soon as you get to the city, you're in this, like, big, like, environment. It's like, I don't know, like, how to describe it. It's like an old European-style town. And it's kind of vague about whether or not it's, like, is it medieval? Like, well, obviously it's fantasy, but, like, is it medieval or is it modern? Because there do appear to be, like, some elements of, like, you know, modern, like, technology and stuff. But for the most part, it looked like it definitely has that medieval fantasy aesthetic. And, like, you know, people ride around on horses and stuff.
Yeah, it is, like, a perfect mixture of modern and medieval. I genuinely loved every bit of the fantasy world that they created. What was the reason why I laughed when you were talking, because I was immediately reminded of, I don't know if you saw it, but in the town, I was really looking at like every nook and cranny. I took my good old time really taking in the setting and the scene that they created in the major big city. And there's this guy sitting on the side just vaping.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And seeing that, I was like immediately pulled like, whoa, okay, that's definitely a more modern thing. Just guy vaping on the side in this town. It's so funny. But yeah, no, I am obsessed with this world that they created, and we only got to see like this big city. I cannot wait to explore more of this world. I don't know how they were able to achieve it, but I'm already so invested in everything that they've introduced in the game in the first 2 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even though, like, there was only so much we could explore of it in the demo, like, the city looks really big and expansive, and, like, once the full game lets us, I'm probably just gonna mess around in that place for, like, hours.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's so big.
Yeah, and, I mean, another thing, like, I actually saw one of the characters that I recognized from the AX demo, that pink-haired girl.
Oh, yes!
I forgot what her actual name is, I just call her Rin.
I don't know her name either. I just know that she's a papyrus. No, not papyrus. The tribe.
Yeah.
They are. I can't remember the name of that tribe. But yeah, the very interesting design. I don't remember seeing her before, but I have very vague memories of the trailers and the demo even that I played.
Yeah. And I mean, also, like, you know, they're like, one of the things, like, that Metaphor has that, you know, a lot of, you know, fantasy games have is, like, they have different races, and there definitely, like, from the cutscenes that we saw, there definitely seems to be some prejudice against certain races, like the dog people. You remember that?
Yeah, that's the race I was trying to think of the name of. I cannot remember the name of that race for the life of me, but yeah, there is a lot of heavy discrimination. Yeah, so there are 9 tribes in the game, 8 that they acknowledge, and the protagonist is the 9th Elda tribe.
Yeah, like, he doesn't have horns, he doesn't have pointy ears, he doesn't have any animal parts. He's basically like the game's closest thing to a human.
Basically, yeah.
But then you have the monsters, like the bosses, those things are called human.
Yes, they are, which is also extremely interesting. I brought that up to the devs, that I, quote unquote, I understood the metaphor that they were putting down.
Yeah.
With fighting humans, like the main theme of the game that they're going for is anxiety, and the main enemies of the game are humans. So the message there, I think, is pretty obvious that you're fighting these humans, like you're fighting your own inner beasts, your inner anxieties. I think the message is pretty clear there. It's just interesting to see. I'm very interested to see where they take that message in the future as the game develops.
Yeah, I mean, they've made it pretty clear from their marketing that, like, the world that the game takes place in, it's like a parallel to the real one. In fact, in the opening cutscene, it even shows like you get this like storybook style picture, but it shows like a modern city. which,
Yeah.
you know, to them it's fantasy, but, you know, to us it's like a modern city, so kind of makes me wonder, it's like, is any, like, is the game, like, at all, is any of it gonna take place in the modern world, or is there some kind of connection to Atlus's other games? Like, I don't know, maybe there is a connection to SMT and Persona, and they just haven't told us yet.
Yeah, I have a feeling there will be some sort of connection of like the same world, because it is very interesting that the game immediately opens up with breaking the fourth wall and addressing you as the player.
Yeah, although they mention in like the game's quote-unquote fantasy world that there's no prejudice, and I'm like, this must take place in like, either that's like something that's gonna be revealed later in the game, or it takes place in that future from South Park where like all the races are combined and everyone speaks the same language.
Yeah, that might be where it goes in the future. I don't have any theories on that. I just find it very interesting to be addressed as the player, because like normally you name your protagonist, and you do in this game, but it actually threw me off whenever I was putting my own name at the very beginning of the game. It's the first thing they ask you. I'm like, oh, wait, not the protagonist, but like me? You're talking to me? Very weird. Very different.
And I mean, I guess like another thing is that they kind of, like, you know, in addition to the whole discrimination thing, they also seem to be, I guess, how do I put it, like, you know, obviously, like, there are nations at war, and there's like a lot of political turmoil going on with, you know, like the characters and the royal families and the military and the government. I mean, the protagonist, you know, he like joins the military. He joins the city's military just so he could go undercover.
Right.
And then, you know, and it doesn't seem that morale is all that strong because the recruiters are being like, oh, you're probably gonna die, or we don't want you, or something. I mean, that's what happens with the next guy, like, I forgot his name.
I don't. Wait, you talking about like Stroll? Like
yeah, Stroll, sorry.
Oh, okay, yes.
You know, once he finds out that the protagonist is like, you know, that he's going undercover and he's not working with them, he's just like, I'm gonna join because why the hell not?
Yeah. It is very interesting on the note of like how you meet Stroll, because yeah, we don't understand as a player why yet he is enlisting in the army. I don't think it was very clear. He's still mysterious on why. Stroll's story so far is just from the country and is a random prince of random country that no one, or country part in this fantasy world that no one really knows about. It's very, so it's, I don't know where Stroll's gonna go, but I will say he's my favorite. I'm a little bit obsessed with Stroll. It's fine. But his introduction in the enlistment scene is very strong. I'm actually super impressed with Stroll. And how he just like immediately clings on to the main character, probably because he just doesn't like the discrimination that everybody is clearly showing toward the protagonist. Which is very charming. I just love everything about Stroll, and the enlistment is weird, but it seems like everybody is just in a very desperate situation. The military just needs any arms and bodies that they can get, doesn't matter who you are. They also, on that note, bring up the igniters, how you use magic in the game.
Oh, yeah.
They're very rare. It takes like, you basically have to be rich, a rich person to have an igniter. And they are given to everybody that enlists because that is your form of magic. That is how you do combat.
I'm guessing you took a look at the one that was on display at the shop.
The Royal Scepter?
Yeah.
Yes. That was interesting. I do have some theories, but
okay.
I don't know how deep we want to get here, but I have my theories.
But
on this Royal Scepter, but
yeah, so what did I guess like we've already talked a little bit about the combat, like how it uses SMT's press turret system. Now, I didn't notice this in the demo that we played, but at the demo at AX, they had combo attacks which would use up like multiple like turn icons depending on how many party members you needed for them. So I'm guessing that's something that's not introduced until like a little bit later in the game.
Yeah, probably not.
Another thing I noticed is that Stroll, like when he joined at first, he wasn't controllable until he got his archetype.
Damn,
so I'm
really
wondering if there are going to be like a lot of characters that join that you can't control. If like I'm just kind of wondering if that's going to be something, or if that's going to be something that like pretty much goes like midway into the game, because they didn't have anything like that at the AX demo, and those took place much later in the game.
Oh, I didn't play those specific demos at AX. I played like I think the story mode, which is pretty much the same thing we just played, which just goes to the first dungeon of the game.
Right.
But if I had to take any guesses, the archetypes. I'm feeling like it has the same vibe as you can't use it until you get your awakening. You have your persona moment.
Yeah.
You face your inner shadow.
That's basically what happened.
Yeah, that is practically what happened. And I imagine every character is going to have that same character arc, similar to Persona, and have their awakening use an archetype. That's my assumption of how that'll go.
Right. But I mean, overall, like, you know, I thought the dungeon design was good. I thought the combat was a lot of fun. I mean, I can't really, I guess there's not a whole lot I can say about the dungeon design, because it's kind of like, obviously it's like, you know, your fantasy style environments. You got like your fields and your caves and your castles and stuff with the bosses at the end.
Yeah.
But in terms of difficulty, like, I actually have a bit to say about this, because I played on hard. I actually tried to play on Regicide, which is the highest difficulty, but the game wouldn't let me. I don't know if that's because you have to beat the game first, or if it was just disabled for the demo. But
right.
I played on hard, and I didn't really have much of a problem up until the third boss. And I'll probably put some footage on screen, but this thing was like, this thing basically just like one-shot my entire party when we were defending. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, by the time I got to him and he started kicking my butt, like the time was already almost up, so I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll just keep attempting this guy to see if I can beat him, but I didn't even come close.
Wow. Maybe it's scripted, you're supposed to lose, maybe?
I mean, well, no, because he actually did kill me, and it just sent me back to my last save point. My last, last checkpoint.
Oh, dang. I was also on hard mode, but yeah, I didn't get past the first. I just got the first boss done, so I didn't get very far in my playthrough, but that makes me a little bit nervous. But it's good to hear. I hope that level of difficulty actually holds up. Right.
It's just like, I guess my only complaint was that it was a bit of a spike in difficulty, because like I said, I didn't have any trouble with any of the enemies or bosses up until that point. And it is also at a point that's very early in the game, so your customization is a bit limited.
Right. It's like, reminds me of Matador.
Right. Although, I actually never had that much of a problem with Matador, but I already knew what to expect when I played Nocturne for the first time.
Yeah, I had no idea. It's the first comparison I made, because I know Matador is pretty early on as well. But it actually further than Metaphor in the first 3 hours, though. That's a bit of an early spike.
Right. I would say a better comparison would be maybe Minotaur, even though I think Minotaur and SMT4, even though I think Medusa is worse.
Yeah, no, I struggle with Minotaur more than Medusa, but yeah, that's another good comparison too. There's always like a spike, but in the first 3 hours of the game, that might be a bit too early, especially when you don't have a lot of like different mechanics that you can utilize on a boss at that time.
Right.
It wouldn't be better introduced later, but we'll see about this spike. Maybe they'll fix it. I don't know.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm one of those masochists that always plays on the hardest difficulty, so I'm actually probably going to play on Regicide my first time if the game lets me.
Hopefully they do let you. That's a concern of mine. I hope it's not unlocked by
That's one thing, like, this is going on a bit of a tangent, but that's one thing that, like, kind of pissed me off a little about Soul Hackers 2, because they made the very hard difficulty DLC, but I played it early, so I didn't have the DLC.
Was really bad. Ugh, I hated that too. It's that should not be a thing ever.
No, it shouldn't. But what else was I gonna say? Like, it also, like, you know, going back to the Persona comparisons, another thing that I noticed is that you have that little fairy companion that follows you around.
Oh, Gallica, yes.
Yeah, I actually like her.
I loved Gallica. My thoughts on her immediately were like, whenever you think of like a fairy companion in any game that they're in, you usually think like annoying, high-pitched. That's like the two things that immediately come to mind. Like more than Navi. I even think of like SMT5, the Amanizaku, or what's her name?
Oh yeah, she's, well, I would say, I think
fairy,
she's annoying.
but...
I would say her, but she's not with you the entire game.
Right.
And he's not a fairy, but the one I always think of is Morgana.
Who knows? Gallica may tell us to go to bed every 2 seconds. You never know. But
Maybe.
I will say with Gallica, immediately, I love how she has a lot more of a serious tone to her voice. She is not messing around anytime she talks to you. And that kind of tone goes around with pretty much every aspect of the game so far in the first 2 hours that I was able to play. I just really appreciate that everything is taken so seriously right off the bat. You know, Gallica is not there to be your fairy companion that gives you comedic relief or
she actually, like,
navigator.
She actually has her own reasons for being there.
Yes, and she's also very interesting. Like, I immediately have so many questions about her character, her magic, her source of magic. Like, whatever Gallica is as a fairy, like, is also very interesting to the overarching plot of Metaphor. She's just not only very interesting as a character, but I love the direction that they gave Gallica right off the bat. She actually seems like a great companion to the protagonist, and also is very implemented into the story already.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if later on in the story she gets to fight.
Yeah, oh yeah. I hope so.
And I also hope that they include an SMT Pixie costume for her.
Oh my god. Maybe.
Hey, we've already got the Persona costumes.
Yeah, they did already do that. Yeah. It's probably gonna come. I doubt they would pass an opportunity like that up, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, Gallica's great. Really appreciated that.
And I think the thing that, like, that pretty much all of us can universally agree on is that graphically the game is beautiful.
Oh, yes. Graphically very beautiful, and I also want to mention I love the transitions to anime cutscenes. Super smooth. Sure. You just step over a line and you're like dumped into this anime cutscene. You're like, whoa, that transition. Okay, but it was like welcome every time. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, and they also, like, look really good and just, you know, high quality too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't, absolutely. Like, I'm not saying that the anime cutscenes in Persona look bad. Like, they do have a certain charm to it, but you can tell that they're, like, very cheaply made. That doesn't feel like it's the case for Metaphor.
Yeah, and, like, Persona doesn't feel like the anime cutscenes were largely the focus. And here it definitely seems like a lot of attention was put into these anime cutscenes.
Right. And I mean, the character sprites when they're talking, those all look really good. And it uses, like, Metaphor, it uses a cel-shaded art style, which a lot of games nowadays use, and I definitely think that that's going to help the game age.
Oh, definitely.
You know, like, you know, take a look at a game like GTA San Andreas. That game looks horrible today. But then you take a look at Rogue Galaxy. That game also uses a cel-shaded art style. It still looks really good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's going to age very well. And I also, on that kind of note, I'm just very much looking forward to the rest of, like, Metaphor as a franchise after this, because I know that they intend it to be a long-standing franchise like SMT and Persona, so... Right. It does already seem like they put down a really great framework in this game already, and I'm just excited for... I mean, I'm excited for this game, but just excited for the future of the franchise in general. I think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that it sells well. And
me too.
I mean, you know, journalists are definitely going to compare it to Persona, but
For sure.
At least from what I played, I would actually say I agree with them. I just hope it doesn't, like, I just hope it doesn't, like, cannibalize the sales of the Persona series, and I'm also a little, like, just wondering how Atlus is gonna juggle, you know, just working on Metaphor games and working on Persona games.
Right. I know that their team is getting, well, not only has it been reworked a lot in the past 4 years, but I also think it's grown a lot too. So we'll see where that goes in terms of like internal dev team. But yeah, I believe.
So I do think it's fair to expect like Persona 6 to be pretty different from Persona 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm very intrigued. Like, I wonder what the crap they're gonna do there.
Yeah, I wonder if they're even gonna keep Soejima for the art.
One thing. Oh gosh, I hope so. I hope that he keeps doing the art. But one thing I'm surprised we haven't mentioned yet is Protagonist. In comparison, so like you have your Persona series that infamously silent protags. And now we have Metaphor series, which is going to have, most likely, with all the games, like, very talkative protagonists. Very surprising. And I know that was a focus for the dev team as well, to have, like, this very outspoken protagonist. I couldn't believe how much he talked in, like, the first 30 minutes. I was so shocked. I was so taken aback by it.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really feel like he's a self-insert like most of the other SMT protagonists.
Right.
They probably saw how well Ringo was received and are like, oh wait, we don't actually have to make our protagonist silent.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's a style choice because, like, I still actually love silent protagonists. I think that they still have their own benefit in a story. But it's just such a nice, welcome change of pace to hear this protagonist and be so vocal. And also, not to go into, like, heavy story bits, but just to see how much they are really involved in the story already, right at the start.
Right. I mean,
they're very important.
Like, I guess my biggest issue with silent protagonists in Persona and SMT games is that it's like, you know, they want you to be a self-insert, but then with, like, the cutscenes and, you know, like, non-game material and everything, it's like they kind of have a personality for the protagonist, so it's like, well, he can be a self-insert, but there's also this, like, canon way that we kind of want you to play as, but we're not going to make you.
Yeah, in a way there can be a little bit of a disconnect there, so it does feel weird in some ways. Like, we know Persona 3, Makoto Yuki, we know the I don't care attitude, very quiet. We know, like, the Chad Narukami in 4. And the stylish Joker. Like, they do have their archetypes. So it is a little bit weird with the self-insert. But I've always, I don't know, there's a charm that I've always found to the silent protags at the same time. Where it's more interpretive. Where you don't need everything spelled out for you. It's more, you can interpret the personality however you see fit. And I don't know. I do like it, but I don't want it all the time. So seeing this in Metaphor was like, ooh, such a breath of fresh air.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I guess, like, going back to the graphics and, like, the technical aspects, one thing I haven't heard a lot of people talking about is the fact that this game is also coming to PS4.
Oh yes, yeah.
So it kind of makes me wonder, like, I don't think this is the case, but I'm kind of, I guess one thing I'm a little concerned about is that it's being held back by the PS4, or that the PS4 version is going to come out and it's going to, like, run at, like, potato settings. I don't think either of these things are going to be true, but I just know that that's just, like, a concern I have when games get announced like this, because, I mean, we're already, like, almost 4 years into the new console generation. And we're still getting games for the PS4 and Xbox One.
Oh, that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
It's already been that long. Wow. It's a valid concern, though, that you have. I never really think in terms of that, just because I usually stick to my same consoles. But it is something that is important to mention, though.
Yeah.
We'll see.
In fact, I'm almost, like, tempted to get the PS4 version and then review it.
Review the PS4 version? I mean, you absolutely could.
Yeah. And speaking of, I mean, I'm sure this is going to happen, but I am hoping that we do get early copies so that we can actually get our reviews up by the time the game comes out.
Yeah. I'm not a reviewer, but I do hope that they do send them out earlier than they have in the past for you guys.
Yeah, because, like, they didn't do that. I mean, the last Atlus game that I got early was Soul Hackers 2.
I think, yeah, Soul Hackers 2 was early for me. Like, the earliest I got was SMT 5. That was like a month and a half.
Oh yeah,
early.
I got that too.
That was wild. That was so early.
Yeah, they definitely wanted as many people to cover that game as possible.
Yeah, that was very interesting that they did that. But that might be a bit too extreme. I think that might actually be too early.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks, I think, is a good time frame.
Right.
We'll see what they do.
But yeah, and honestly, like that's really all I have to say. I mean, I know we're only allowed to show a total of 45 minutes of footage, so, and I know this call's been going on for almost 45 minutes, but is there anything else you wanted to say about the game?
I think I got all my talking points out of the way. I'm just extremely excited and proud of them for finally getting this project out, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this franchise, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a big deal for me, especially because, you know, I remember when Atlus announced this game. Or, like, I guess they didn't announce it, they just teased it. They just said, hey, we're working on something, it's called Project ReFantazio, and, it's gonna be fantasy, and we're working on it, and, here's some promotional artwork, and, yeah.
And then 10 years later.
Yeah.
It's finally here!
Yeah.
Finally!
It's kind of funny that, like, the character they showed at the promotional artwork, they gave her a new design.
Yeah, they did mention in the panel at AX that it was Hulkenberg, and they reworked her design to look how she currently does.
Yeah. I mean,
I do like the rework a lot.
Yeah, I do prefer her new design, but it would be nice if they included her old design as, like a costume or an Easter egg or something.
Oh, yeah, I never
Because,
thought about
you know, they put that design in Etrian Odyssey Nexus.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. No, I think it was only in Japan, but I know they put it in.
Oh, that's interesting. Dang.
Yeah.
They were really jumping the gun, huh?
Yeah, they did a lot of, like, weird stuff like that for their 3DS games. Like, when Devil Survivor 2 Record Breaker in Japan, you had Durarara characters.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know about that. I just played Record Breaker not long ago. That'd be so cool. What?
Yeah, I mean, they have, like, their files exist in the English version. It's just the DLC was never released.
Oh, that's a crime. What? Wow. Well, the more I know.
But yeah, I mean, so basically, yeah, like, my final thoughts on Metaphor from the demo, you know, I'm definitely excited for the game. It's a lot of fun. It looks great. The story is really interesting, and I'm just very excited to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. Words can't describe how hyped I am to play this game. More than any other game that came out this year. Surprisingly, more than Like a Dragon 8 for me. Just so excited to dip into, like, a whole brand new IP. Honestly. I feel like I just needed something really fresh. And this is just what I've been waiting for so long. I cannot wait to play more. I'm so invested already.
And also, big thanks to Atlus West and GameSite for inviting us.
Yes, absolutely. Holy crap. So much. Thank you so much. We love you, Atlus.
Yep. Alright, but yeah, thank you guys for listening. This is, I mean, those of you that are here from CrystAAHHL, I'm Gnarly, I do, you know, I cover Persona and SMT content. Those of you here that are here from my channel, this is CrystAAHHL, she also does SMT and Persona content. I'll have everyone's link down below in the description. And thank you all for watching, and we will see you later.
Heck yeah, thanks for listening!